In 1878, a soldier at Camp Huachuca in the Arizona Territory watched a prospector stare out at the Apache-controlled hills and told him the only thing he would find out there was his own tombstone. The prospector went anyway. He hid from Apache raiding parties for 2 nights. On the 3rd morning, he climbed a rock ledge and pried loose a piece of ore from a vein of nearly pure silver. The vein was 50 feet long and 12 inches wide. He named his claim Tombstone. His name was Ed Schieffelin. Within 2 years, the mines he discovered would produce an estimated $40 million in silver. In today's money, that is over $1.7 billion. The town that grew around those mines had 8,000 people by 1881. It had more gambling houses and saloons than any settlement in the Southwest. It had 2 banks, an opera house, 4 churches, a school, and the largest red light district in the territory. Tombstone was the richest and most dangerous town in Arizona, and it drowned its own fortune in a single night. I have spent weeks going through forum posts from descendants of Cochise County ranching families, and the detail that keeps surfacing is how fast everything changed. One year, the mines were producing millions. The next year, the tunnels were underwater. What happened in between is a story Hollywood has never told properly because the truth is stranger and sadder than any screenplay. Ed Schieffelin and his brother Al sold their mining claims for $600,000 each. That was an extraordinary sum in 1880. Richard Gerd, their assaying partner, took payment in company stock and eventually made considerably more as the mines expanded. But Ed was a prospector, not a businessman. He took the money and left Tombstone almost immediately. He could not sit still. He traveled. He went to Alaska, chasing the next strike. He spent the rest of his life looking for another tombstone and never found one. In 1897, Ed Schieffelin was found dead alone in his cabin near Canyonville, Oregon. He was surrounded by ore samples. He had been testing and cataloging rocks until the end. The man who found a $1 billion silver vein died alone in a wooden shack, still searching for the next one. His will requested that he be buried in prospector's clothing, with a mining pick and canteen, at the site of his original tombstone discovery. They honored his request. His monument stands there today. A stone pyramid on a hill overlooking the town he created but never stayed to enjoy. As I covered in my Hearst Dynasty video, the men who made the frontier's greatest discoveries almost never held on to what they found. George Hearst was the exception. Ed Schieffelin was the rule. While the silver was flowing, Tombstone attracted everyone who wanted a piece of it. The Earps arrived in 1879. Hollywood turned Wyatt Earp into the greatest lawman of the Old West, but the historical record tells a different story. Wyatt came to Tombstone to get rich, not to enforce justice. He planned to start a stage line. He found 2 already operating. He dealt faro at the Oriental Saloon. His brothers took law enforcement positions because the badge gave them authority that translated into business advantage. The gunfight at the OK Corral on October 26, 1881, lasted 30 seconds and was as much a business dispute as a law enforcement action. 3 men died. The Earps scattered afterward. Wyatt went to Colorado, then Alaska, then California. He died in 1929 in a small Los Angeles apartment, largely forgotten. Hollywood reinvented him decades later. The mines kept producing through the early 1880s. Underground, temperatures could reach unbearable levels. Water seeped in constantly and had to be pumped out at enormous expense. The deeper the miners dug, the more water they encountered. The geology of Tombstone sat on top of an underground water table that the silver veins cut directly through. Then came the moment that ended everything. 2 miners were drinking in a Tombstone saloon before their shift. They disagreed over which direction to tunnel, left or right, to follow a high-grade silver vein. The argument escalated. The decision was made by the men who went underground that night. When they set off a dynamite charge, they breached an underground river. Water flooded the tunnels. It rose through the shafts. It filled the deepest workings of the richest silver mines in Arizona, and it has never been pumped out. The silver is still there, underground, unreachable, beneath water that has sat in those tunnels for over 140 years. The town that was too tough to die sits on top of a fortune it can never reach. I personally think this is the most poetic detail in any Old West story. The silver did not run out. It was not exhausted the way the Comstock lode was depleted, or the way gold camps simply emptied when the dust was gone. The silver is still in the rock. The water is what killed Tombstone, not scarcity. The treasure is there, and nobody can get to it. When the mines flooded, the money left. The ambitious went to the next strike. The population fell. Businesses closed. The cycle that every frontier boomtown followed played out in Tombstone faster and more dramatically than almost anywhere else, because the wealth had been so concentrated and so sudden. Families who had arrived with nothing and built modest fortunes found themselves back at nothing within a year. I came across posts from descendants of Cochise County ranchers who described the generational pattern. Their great-grandparents bought land cheap during the bust. They experienced temporary prosperity. Then the Depression came, and they bought more land from bankrupt neighbors. After the Second World War, old-style free-range ranching became unprofitable. Their grandparents sold. Their parents moved away. The cycle of boom and bust repeated across 3 generations on the same land. Here is what survives. Tombstone's main street is a preserved historic district where you can walk into saloons that operated during the silver boom. Big Nose Kate that still serves drinks. The Birdcage Theater stands with original bullet holes in the walls and the ceiling. The Tombstone Epitaph, the newspaper that covered the OK Corral gunfight the morning after it happened, is still publishing today. Ed Schiefelin's monument stands on a hill east of town. The flooded mine head frames are visible, and the silver is still underground, exactly where it was the night the water broke through. Of all the frontier fortunes, the Comstock Kings, the Hearst Empire, the cattle barons of Wyoming, which dynasty's fall hits you the hardest? Tell me in the comments. If this story changed how you see the Old West, hit like and subscribe. I'm pulling more of these out of the dirt every week. The history books left the best parts out. We are putting them back.